Today's video does not contain any spoilers. You can rest assured that I am always taking precautions to not spoil you guys. I know some of you are extremely cautious right now. However, for right now, I'll only be using early game footage throughout my videos, and I will not be talking about any major twists in the game. Any video in which I talk more about the story will be clearly marked as such. So if you are still enjoying your journey throughout the world of Gaia, you do not have anything to worry about in this video. With that being said, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has launched, and to much fanfare. Everyone is enjoying this game so much. It somehow manages to be cinematic like a linear AAA action game, while also taking place in an open world. There are dozens upon dozens of mini-games, excellent combat, and a ton of things to explore. As I said, it's one of the most exceptional Final Fantasy games ever made, ever. And if you haven't seen my spoiler-free review, I highly recommend checking it out. But to put a long story short, I really like this game. But of course, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the middle chapter in a trilogy, and as soon as people beat one part, they want to know exactly when the next part is coming. Well, today, Naoki Hamaguchi has shared some details on what we can expect from part 3. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as this channel brings you all Final Fantasy news the moment that it happens. First and foremost, I want to start with the launch messages from the team, who've had some wonderful words to share with us. Starting with Yoshinori Kitase, he says that, quote, "As the director of the original Final Fantasy VII, I feel very proud that we were able to introduce a whole new generation to role-playing games and show so many newcomers a wider world of storytelling. Today, I'm filled with the same sense of pride when I look at what our development team has accomplished with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This adventure offers rich rewards to longtime fans, while welcoming in newcomers to begin their Final Fantasy adventure here and experience a similar sense of wonder as they would have felt in 1997. I hope that both fans and those who have never played Final Fantasy before will enjoy this game." Next, we have a message from the GOAT himself, Naoki Hamaguchi, with him saying, quote, "Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a labor of love, an art tribute to adventure, a massive world of compelling stories, and our most ambitious game to date. Like those who first brought us the original Final Fantasy VII, we've reached for something that was never possible before today's technology, a deeper portrayal of our main cast of friends, comrades, and people of the planet. By combining their powers in battle and strengthening their bonds through your choices, we hope you feel a powerful connection with these characters and the world they inhabit." As a side note, this is something that I absolutely love about Rebirth. I love the idea of team synergy. I'm also a huge fan of the Persona series, and I think having social links and being able to spend time with your party is essential. Letting the player develop these close ties to their party members, it allows them to feel a very deep connection to their party. Ultimately, a JRPG is about going on a big adventure with your friends. That's what makes the genre so appealing to so many people. I think that's the absolute most important thing that a JRPG can offer, because it's one of the only genres that really offers it in the way that it does. The next one comes from the man, the myth, the legend, Tetsuya Nomura. "For many years, I wondered what a remake of Final Fantasy VII could look like. Above all else, I felt we would need to do justice to the characters and the story that had become so beloved by fans around the world. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth delivers on this vision and vastly expands upon the original title, not only in the size of its world, but in the quiet moments shared by party members, where warmth, joy, sorrow, and tenderness can be found. As they press on and forge deeper bonds en route to their ultimate fate, I hope you will open your heart to feel these feelings alongside them." As the second title in a trilogy, we've enjoyed hearing our fans' feedback from the previous title and incorporating elements into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for a truly breathtaking follow-up. "Thank you for playing our vision for a remake, in which the past is honored by the possibilities of the present to reimagine the story for future generations." One thing that he mentioned there that Rebirth is loaded with is quiet moments with the party. This is one of the biggest successes of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. You get to really spend time with your party members, enjoying their company, and truly getting to know them in a way that I think is better done than many contemporary titles. And not just because it's a remake of a classic story with beloved characters, but a lot of it is the new liberties that they take to make you even closer to these characters than before. It all succeeds very well on that front. When it comes to which key staff member does what, there is always a lot of discourse between fans of the roles of development of each key staff member. IGN's article had this to say, quote, "Where Yoshinori Kitase, Nomura, Nojima, and Motomu Toriyama worried about the creative direction of the story, Hamaguchi Hamaguchi was tasked with logistics. He talks about being in charge of the structure of the game, the meat and potato elements like the combat in the open world, and managing the overall development. Meanwhile, it was Nomura who came up with the Rebirth subtitle, which like Remake has something of a double meaning. I think having played the game, you'll understand what Rebirth means to this title, Hamaguchi says. Kitase, Nomura, Nojima, and Toriyama were all visionaries on the original Final Fantasy VII project, and contributed to its original story, so it's no surprise there that they're the ones in charge of the creative direction of the story. Fans will always say, oh, it's Nomura's fault, it's Nojima's fault, it's Kitase's fault, etc. But these guys all work as a unit. And a development team is exactly that, a team. They debate between each other, but in the end, they all conclusively agree on this stuff. Hamaguchi also had some very nice words to share about Nomura, with him saying, quote, "Nomura-san is an extremely creative individual, and since he was one of the creators involved with the original Final Fantasy VII, he was vital in understanding the elements that were most appealing, and continue that which was beloved from the original title, and how we can best express this in a way that would make the kind of impact today as well. He has this immaculate sensibility in that way, and his opinions were very vital in development. He is a creator that I have massive respect towards." FF7 OG was originally conceptualized by Sakaguchi and Nomura together. As such, it's no wonder that he's the creative director of the entire remake trilogy, as he was seen as someone vital to the original project. This is something that's often debated and challenged due to people's personal feelings about Nomura, but the fact remains about his contributions. The team was also asked if they took any lessons from Final Fantasy XVI, with these two games being in simultaneous development. Hamaguchi had this to say: "It is very often so that, even if there are other titles in which the timelines of development align or overlap, it can be pretty challenging to actually implement things from another title into our own, simply because the overall structure is already constructed or determined early on." So yeah, looking at the active time lore or some of the cinematic elements of expression they deployed in Final Fantasy XVI, there were certainly a lot of elements that were inspiring or very intriguing, but it was quite difficult to implement. This is something that I've talked about before, where a lot of people were like, oh, why didn't they reference Final Fantasy VII Remake's battle system when working on Final Fantasy XVI? The problem is that Final Fantasy XVI started its conceptualization phase all the way back during the release of Heavensward. That is to say, late 2015, early 2016. This is before Part 1 of Final Fantasy VII Remake even launched. So at that point, there was no way to reference any other project and say, oh, maybe we'll go with that now. It would not have even been remotely close to an option for them, not without costing them millions of dollars. And they were confident in what they wanted to deliver, and they did exactly that. But it's also to say that feedback on a title during its release window before they start working on the next title is usually when it's most important, because that is the moment where they can take that feedback and implement it into their next project. Once specifications for a project are locked down, you don't really want to change anything. It's also how you end up with scope creep, delays, and a ton of other things. Now, in terms of Rebirth, Rocket Town did not make it into this game. It's been confirmed since before release that Rocket Town will be saved for Part 3 alongside other locations like Wutai. Hamaguchi saying, quote, "Considering that in the original, the Gungaga area was optional for players, we wanted to delve into this and express this in more depth for Rebirth, and so that was an additional consideration for this as well." Without going into spoilers, Gungaga is probably one of my favorite areas in this entire game. It is absolutely gorgeous, and you guys will be very delighted to see that region. And with that, let's talk more about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. The team has previously confirmed that development for Part 3 is already underway. However, Hamaguchi notes that it's going to take a long time for the game to be developed. As such, he wanted to develop a title with a lot of mystery and intrigue around it, to give fans something to discuss during these lengthy development times. With him saying, quote, "HD games take quite long to develop. It's not as so that we can release the final title the following year or anything like that. Of course, it takes a bit more time, so it is our intent and hopes that there will be many thoughts and conjectures and sort of guesses as to what this exactly means. And we do hope that players will kind of think about this and consider this up to the following title," Hamaguchi says. There was a lot to discuss with Final Fantasy VII Remake. 4 years almost of discussion back and forth, with me and other content creators. And honestly, I had a great time doing it. And rest assured that me, Baby Seal, Blitz, Phil Hartshorn, Tim Rogers, all the guys that you've enjoyed seeing me chat with over the years, I'm going to try to have them all back on, so that we can discuss all of our thoughts of Rebirth in between this and the next part. Without spoiling, I will say that there is going to be a lot to discuss with Rebirth. In fact, there is probably more to discuss with Rebirth than there is with Remake. This story is absolutely loaded, and I'm just waiting for the right time when I think a significant number of you have finished to begin talking about it. A lot of people are already asking me about story stuff, but trust me, we will get there. That being said, Hamaguchi has said that the next game script is still in development, so plenty can change, though he teases that more characters from the compilation may be joining the fray, with him saying, quote, "So while I can't comment on the exact content of the third title now, of course, whenever we present characters that have originally appealed and appeared in a compilation title for Final Fantasy VII, we've seen very positive feedback. Fans are very delighted to see some of the characters from the compilation of Final Fantasy VII titles that they have really loved and enjoyed, so I hope that we can continue to touch on these. But at the time, in terms of the storyline, nothing is set in stone. It'll be really interesting to see which compilation characters will be introduced next." This all being said, Hamaguchi says that he's in for this for the long haul, with him saying, "At the end of Remake, I had pretty lengthy discussions with Kitase-san surrounding this, and that I would be devoted to this project for the next 12 years or so. I think we both had reached consensus together and had some very good discussions around that, and so with that, I feel very much committed. And with the Remake series, as well as Rebirth, I feel very confident about bringing it into this world. So I have this resolve for the Remake series and concluding the trilogy." Do you guys ever think about that? About how long AAA development is now? He's going to have to spend 12 years of his life, not including the first game, the next 12 years, he said, on this one project. Could you imagine working on something for a decade and a half? So much so that it becomes your life's work. That is the current state of AAA games. But at least Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is long enough to last us a very long time, and many months and years of discussion worth afterwards. But hit that subscribe button, letting me know what you think Part 3's subtitle will be, and I will see you all in the next video.